You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
Progress made in Cherokee Village budget issues by Cindy Harris, read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
After several past meetings where the Financial Task Force of the Cherokee Village City Council examined in detail the budget problems, the July 7th meeting saw several proposed partial solutions being discussed in earnest. Alderman Lynn Maxedon stated to the City Council, "It's time to start talking about my proposal before, which was to see if we can get volunteers for retirement from some of our employees," he stated, reiterating that they need to reduce payroll expenses, and to do so, he continued, "I believe we need to look at reduction in what we pay for salaries in order to make a decent effort towards keeping going as a city, because I'm really afraid that if we don't take action soon, our problems might compound for the start of the next year, so we need to start now." Councilwoman Vera Mae Newman responded by saying, "I think it is ridiculous to ask someone to retire for $500. $50,000 or $60,000? Sure, but you're not going to get someone to retire for $500. Newman suggested that the department heads be asked to cut their budget by 10%, saying some have already cut by as much as 20%, but some haven't done anything at all. Newman also reminded everyone that a city is a business. It can't be run without revenues. We need to go ahead with the millage, need to take it to 5 mil. We need to encourage people to pass the sales tax, which is very minor, and will finally catch up with the other cities. She then went on to suggest that the other sources of revenue could be enacted, such as an A&P tax. She said, "We'd take in probably about $200,000 annually once all this gets implemented and is in place." Newman also suggested some actions at animal control, saying, "I know the animal shelter has been a hot topic lately. Let's set a limit on the number of cats and the number of dogs we can handle. If we're over that limit, we don't have to euthanize. We can adopt out the animals until we get down to our maximum number. Then we don't take in any more animals from any place but Cherokee Village and Ozark Acres, because Ozark Acres is contracted with." She agreed that action needs to be taken now, but that asking people to make drastic cuts is asking too much, going on to say, "We can start with small steps. If we have to, we can ask employees to cut their hours by 1 hour a day, but not cut them in half. Most of them can't survive by doing that. We will survive for 2011. Let's start worrying about 2012. Newman elaborated on the need to raise the millage rate by saying, "We've got to catch up with the times. The reason you're living here is because in Illinois, the taxes on your house are approximately $3,000, and here in Cherokee Village, they're approximately $500 a year. But we are still a city, and to survive, we need revenue." Alderman Russ Stokes then stated that staff has been added in administration and other areas and suggested that the personnel be reduced using a last-in, first-out theory. He feels this would enact a large savings by reducing personnel. He was reminded by Newman, however, that in January of 2011, the council put a freeze on personnel in that they cannot replace anyone who leaves unless it is deemed by the department head that it would be extremely necessary to replace them. As evidence that this policy is already being followed, currently both the police department and the fire departments are down 1 employee each, and those employees will not be replaced. Lynn Maxedon pointed out that since the last Financial Task Force meeting, the department heads have looked at the budget and cut a number of things, some of them all the way down to zero. "We are looking at a bare-bones budget already. They have cut out over $100,000 from the budget we originally passed, but we're still in trouble. In the general fund for $353,516. Newman took this as evidence that cutting expenses were not enough, saying, "There again, we still need to add revenue." Councilman Jerry Adams then brought up the animal control subject, stating, "Before anyone loses his or her job or has their hours cut, we need to look at the animal control situation." Adams continued, "It is a county problem, and why we, Cherokee Village, are taking on animal control when we don't even have a sales tax just makes no sense to me." Police Chief Ricky Crook then reported on donations that have come in from the community for the animal control shelter, stating that, "Just today, from 2 different sources, we have received donations of 6,382 pounds of dog food," referring to the efforts of the Cherokee Village resident Bill Matzelboba in setting up donation points for pet food at several businesses in Hardy, Highland, and Ash Flat, as well as one large donation he secured from a business in Thayer. Carolyn Brown of the Animal Help and Humane Association, Inc., AHHA, a nonprofit organization, reported that they have recently donated $2,500 for food and medicine to the animal control shelter. In summary, several of the council members repeated several times that the city has already been taking steps to cut expenses, but that in order for the city of Cherokee Village to maintain its high quality of life, including the vital services being provided by the police department and the fire department, including EMTs, recent road developments and the maintenance of these roads, especially during the snow season and after windstorms, as well as maintenance of the animal shelter, it will also need to increase revenue. So far, it seems that the most significant ways that the city revenue can be increased would be either that the city council vote for an increase in the property assessment millage rate, or that the citizens of Cherokee Village vote for the 1% sales tax in September.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
District 80 Week in Review by Representative Linda Collins Smith. Read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
In a recent column, I mentioned the state was expected to wrap up the fiscal year, which ended June 30th, with the budget in good shape. Well, the Department of Finance and Administration issued its official year-end review report this week, and the state closed out fiscal year 2011 $93.9 million ahead of the budget forecast. It is the first time in 3 years that the state has ended the year with more revenue than projected. Net available funds actually available to spend, total $4.5 billion, which is 5.8% above last year's total. Funds came in above the forecast primarily because collections from individual and corporate income taxes were greater than expected. Individual collections exceeded forecasts by $62.2 million, and corporate collections were $16.2 million more than forecast. Analysts say that this reflects the economic upturn of 2010 reported on the 2011 tax filings. Another major factor putting the revenue above projections was that a one-time year-end transfer of surplus fees from the Department of Insurance totaling $16.4 million. However, all categories were not above forecast. Gross receipts tax totals, coming mainly from sales tax collections, grew with the economy, but then slowly toward the end of the fiscal year, coming in at $11.1 million below forecast. Analysts believe increased fuel prices impacted taxpayer spending and caused the slowdown. Nevertheless, the overall report was a good one, and that is a category we will keep a close eye on as we move forward. Already, some folks have speculated just how the state should spend its above forecasted funding. Although most of us see the revenue numbers as a positive sign on the road to financial recovery, we recognize this road is a slow one that could hold unexpected twists and turns. Therefore, to stay prepared, we must continue the same conservative budget practices that helped our state end this year on a positive note. Eventually, the financial cushion may be used up to help plug some of the existing budget holes. For example, the state's Medicare budget faces a major shortfall in the next 2 years. Some leaders have suggested that the revenue surplus should be used to help there as we work to lower the state's overall Medicare costs to prevent future shortfalls. Others have suggested the surplus might help fund the tax cuts recently put in place. Whatever our action, it is important to remain cautious. Overall, I'm pleased with the apparent shape of our year-end review. The last few years have been tight ones for state finances, as I'm sure they have been for your family's budget. Hopefully, the upswing will continue in coming months as we head into the 2012 fiscal session in February.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
From the Front by Sergeant First Class Michael Eaton. Read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
Friends and family. In this life, you are born into some sort of family. However large or small that may be, you grow up and meet people, you go off and start a family of your own, and then watch as the cycle happens again around you until you pass on to the other side, based on whatever faith you may practice or believe in. Those markers may seem so simple to identify and notch on your timeline of life, but it is the details in between that really define us as a people and constitute our humanity. In a normal life, we grow up and make friends in addition to our families. But what is the real separation of the two? How and where do you define those lines of delineation? What criteria do you use and how firm are they? In the life of a soldier, however, we do not live normal lives. So what we consider friends versus family quickly gets blurred and sometimes completely rewritten altogether. When people share certain experiences and trials in life, they are forever changed and forever linked by those specific events. The terms brother and sister take on a totally new definition, different connotations, as they encompass people outside of my bloodlines, but nonetheless as close, or some even closer than. I have served 16 plus long and hard years in the United States Army. I have seen 5 different combat theaters and spent time with a diverse group of people. I have brothers according to the normal measure, other sons born from my mother and father. I also have other brothers and sisters by the military extended definition. I have seen the worst this world has to offer in war and combat, up close and personal with our enemies in Iraq and Afghanistan, and seen the best and most our men and women of the armed forces have to offer up and sacrifice for our precious red, white, and blue. I've made family where there was none. I have formed bonds forged under fire and written in blood, which mean more to me than almost any ties I came from back home there in Arkansas. I can truly tell you in detail how and why I am as close to this elite group, my Army family, but I will paint a simple criteria picture for you to aid in the understanding. Name all the people outside your immediate family that you know. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you picked up the phone, called them, and said you needed them wherever you are right now, would they drop everything on that small request alone and be there in a matter of hours? I imagine most of your lists are quite short. That is the difference between you and I. My list is long and has been tested on several occasions. I owe every breath to many brothers and sisters in uniform, and I have been dug out of harm's way and saved from certain death by my brothers, patched up and looked after by my sisters, and returned to the favor every chance I got. Those kinds of bonds always stand the test of time, distance, and any other trial you may have put them through. I have been at home, away from war, and needed help. And I have made that phone call in the middle of the night and had my brothers knocking on my door the next morning, no matter where they were and where they had to come from. Those same brothers and sisters know if they call me, I will be there. Bottom line, ironically, most of these extended brothers and sisters have all been informally adopted by my immediate family as well, and still bear the same affiliations of brother and sister. My mother, Lisa, will tell you to this day she has 3 sons, and many, many other sons. Ask her sometime about Scotty, Johnny, Stephanie, and the list goes on and on. In the Army, we have a special section of the Soldier's Creed that states, "I will never leave a fallen comrade." That is not only applied to the battlefield, it's equally applied to being at home and even out of combat. And it is sworn and held together throughout a soldier's life, even after he or she has hung up those uniforms. I am truly a wealthy man, not in money or assets, but in love. The love of a huge and abundant family of brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, my wife and children, mother and father, but also all those who I have the honor of calling my Army family. This is just another facet of life that a soldier leads. We may grow up alone in some cases, but as soldiers, we are never alone ever again. So the next time you find yourself in a jam and wondering who to call and what excuses they may have to not come and help you out, ask a soldier. They will always be there. Until next time, this is Sergeant First Class Michael Eaton from the front. Take care and God bless.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
Upcoming Hardy events discussed by Cindy Harris, read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
The Hardy City Council meeting was held July 5th, in which the Flood Damage Prevention Code ordinance passed its first vote. The new executive director of Main Street Hardy was introduced, and several events were announced, including the Sportsman Show, Kids Fun Day Park on July 16th, Backpack Giveaway on August 6th, and Jumpin' Jam. Details to be announced later. Mayor Nina Thornton reminded the Hardy City Council that the Ordinance 2011-2, the Flood Damage Prevention Code, must be passed by the council by September 16th, according to the National Flood Insurance Program. If it isn't passed by that date, Hardy will not be eligible to receive any FEMA disaster funds in the event of floods, ice storms, or any other natural disaster. Due to the ordinance's length, complexity, and rezoning and annexation issues, the council decided to review the new flood insurance rate maps prior to voting on the ordinance. The first reading took place and the first vote on the ordinance passed. Mayor Thornton also informed them that if a structure receives 51% damage over a 10-year period, it must be treated as a one-time 51% damage occurrence. Once a structure is deemed damaged 51% or more, it may not be repaired. It must be rebuilt to be habitable. Persons who suffer from 51% damage may get a grant to bring the structure up to standards. It was announced that Ronnie Campbell passed the test and received his license for testing water samples. Ordinance 2011-3, which increases rates of wholesale water by 47 cents per 1,000 gallons, was read and voted on 3 times as is required. It passed unanimously all 3 times. This ordinance affects wholesale water purchases from the railroad and from Biggers Bluff. Al Corte, Executive Director of Main Street Hardy, Inc., introduced himself to the council members and expressed his pleasure at being associated with Hardy's revitalization. He said that he realizes the problems of the past, but the past is the past. I want to go forward and stay positive. Negatives are done. Corte acknowledged that Hardy is one of only 18 Main Street cities in Arkansas. He said, "We've got something many cities would die for." He reminded everyone that the next event they have planned is the Jumpin' Jam. Details will follow soon. The Sportsman's Show and Kids Fun Day Park will be held Saturday, July 16th at Loughburg Park. There will be fun things to do for everyone. And on Saturday, August 6th, Hardy will participate in the Backpack Giveaway, which will be held at the Assembly of God Church on Highway 62 412 in Highland. Hardy will be manning the hot dog stand. Hardy City Council meetings are held every first and third Tuesday in the Old Hardy Gym at 7 p.m., and all are invited to attend.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
Highland Rebel Booster Club holds monthly meeting. New officers appointed. By E.B. Barnes. Read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
On Tuesday, July 5th, the Highland Rebel Booster Club gathered at the A.L. Hudson Memorial Center's hospitality room to cover nominations of officers for the upcoming 2-year period. Other subjects that were discussed included the 7-on-7 at Harding University, the 30th year reunion of the 1981 state champions football team, the proposed conference lineup for the 2011 football season, renovations to the tennis courts, and the Rebel Booster Club 4-person scramble on the Cherokee Village South Golf Course. The meeting began at 6 p.m. with President James Bragg calling the discussion to order. Minutes from the previous meeting were reviewed and discussed. John Katrash, the new assistant coach for the senior high Rebels football team, was welcomed to the Booster Club. After a review of the current account balances, Spencer Hill, head football coach, reviewed the 7-on-7 that was played at Harding University earlier in the summer break. Hill mentioned that it went pretty well and told the Booster Club that the 7-on-7s start at Pocahontas this week on Thursdays. Hill also said that he had been working hard on the 2011 football season schedule. The 4A3 conference is losing Osceola and gaining Cave City in the next year. This has not been approved by the Arkansas Activities Association yet, but it is in the works. The first day of school will start on August 15th. The first scrimmage game will be on the following week. Hill is trying to locate a non-conference game to be played. Currently, Thayer or Bald Knob High Schools are the 2 most likely teams to be Highlands opponents in the scrimmage game. Richard Stowers told the Booster Club that he is in the process of setting up the 30-year reunion for the 1981 state championship football team. He plans on getting together, viewing old films, and just having a good time. Contact Richard Stowers for more information on the 30-year reunion. The renovations to the high school tennis courts were also brought up. Danny Gibson told the Booster Club that Billy Smart will be putting the lights on the poles within the next 3 to 4 weeks. The Booster Club would like to thank Billy Smart for all of his help. David Webb then took the floor and presented the Rebel Booster Club 4-person scramble at the Cherokee Village South Golf Course that will be taking place on the 23rd of July. Webb informed the Booster Club that 40 teams of 4 have already signed up, opposed to 33 teams of 4 last year. The deadline to sign up to play in the four-person scramble is July 22nd. The cost is $40 per player, and $60 gets both the Booster Club membership, regularly $25, and the entry fee for $40. For more information, contact Dave Webb at the South Golf Course. Bill Pierce, member of the nominations committee, then stood up and asked everyone for their attention. The nominating committee, consisting of Blake Medlock, Bill Pierce, and James Bragg, hereby present the following selection for officers of the membership to consider for a 2-year period beginning August 1st. President, James Bragg. Vice President, Blake Medlock. Secretary, Julie Seat. Treasurer, Mike Burris. 3 board members, Danny Gibson, Richard Stowers, and Sam Hill. The nominees were motioned to pass by the membership. The new officers will take their positions beginning August 1st and hold said position for a 2-year period. The next meeting was set for July 26th at the A.L. Hudson Memorial Center in the hospitality room. Setting goals and objectives for the next year will be the topics.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
State Capitol Week in Review from Senator Missy Irvin.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
Thanks mainly to very conservative budgeting, Arkansas state government ended its fiscal year on June 30th with a surplus of about $94 million. State budget officials said the surplus was also evidence of a slow economic recovery. State revenue is a good indicator of the health of the Arkansas economy because taxes have not gone up. That means any increase in tax revenue is caused by an increase in economic activity rather than by higher tax rates. In fact, in the regular legislative session earlier this year, lawmakers reduced state taxes by about $35 million annually. It was the state's first surplus in 3 years. Legislative leaders and the governor agreed that although the surplus is good news, it's not cause to create any new spending programs. The governor suggested that the surplus be used to shore up the state's Medicaid program, which is expected to run a budget shortfall within the next 2 years. The surplus is in the state's General Revenue Fund, the main source of discretionary spending by legislators. There are other sources of state revenue that go for dedicated purposes, such as motor fuels taxes that are spent on highway maintenance and construction. Another example is the money from a settlement with a major cigarette manufacturer that pays for a variety of state healthcare programs. The main sources of the General Revenue Fund are state sales taxes, individual income taxes, and corporate income tax. Last fiscal year, the net total for the state's General Revenue Fund was about $4.57 billion. That amount represents about $94 million more than the legislature authorized in spending. Arkansas is one of 46 states where the fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. We have just begun the fiscal year of 2012. Since last year, state and local governments across the country have laid off about 350,000 government workers because of declining revenues. Many states are struggling to pay for increases in Medicaid costs, which are going up in part because people have lost their jobs and become eligible for Medicaid services, and in part because the baby boomer generation is getting older and requires more medical care. In the campaign against speeding, from July 10th through 16th, the state police will step up enforcement of traffic laws against speeding in a campaign labeled Obey the Sign or Pay the Fine. The director of the state police said that speeding generally reduces a driver's ability to steer safely around other vehicles and any dangerous obstacles in the road. It also lessens a driver's ability to negotiate an unexpected curve. Speeding translates to fatalities on Arkansas roadways, he said. Speeding is a factor in about a third of all fatalities caused by traffic accidents. County and city law enforcement officers will participate in the anti-speeding effort. Lottery scholarships. About 70,000 college students have applied for an academic challenge scholarship for the upcoming school year. The scholarships are funded with proceeds from the state lottery. Last year, 58,000 students applied and about 31,000 were awarded a lottery scholarship. The popularity of the new state lottery is believed to have increased awareness of the availability of the academic challenge scholarship. They will be worth $4,500 for freshmen at a 4-year university and $2,225 for new students at 2-year colleges. Thank you for listening to Spring River Chronicle Audio on the Go. Be sure to share these stories with your friends.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
State Capitol Week in Review from Senator Missy Irvin.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
Thanks mainly to very conservative budgeting, Arkansas state government ended its fiscal year on June 30th with a surplus of about $94 million. State budget officials said the surplus was also evidence of a slow economic recovery. State revenue is a good indicator of the health of the Arkansas economy because taxes have not gone up. That means any increase in tax revenue is caused by an increase in economic activity rather than by higher tax rates. In fact, in the regular legislative session earlier this year, lawmakers reduced state taxes by about $35 million annually. It was the state's first surplus in 3 years. Legislative leaders and the governor agreed that although the surplus is good news, it's not cause to create any new spending programs. The governor suggested that the surplus be used to shore up the state's Medicaid program, which is expected to run a budget shortfall within the next 2 years. The surplus is in the state's general revenue fund, the main source of discretionary spending by legislators. There are other sources of state revenue that go for dedicated purposes, such as motor fuels taxes that are spent on highway maintenance and construction. Another example is the money from a settlement with a major cigarette manufacturer that pays for a variety of state healthcare programs. The main sources of the General Revenue Fund are state sales taxes, individual income taxes, and corporate income tax. Last fiscal year, the net total for the state's General Revenue Fund was about $4.57 billion. That amount represents about $94 million more than the legislature authorized in spending. Arkansas is one of 46 states where the fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. We have just begun the fiscal year of 2012. Since last year, state and local governments across the country have laid off about 350,000 government workers because of declining revenues. Many states are struggling to pay for increases in Medicaid costs, which are going up in part because people have lost their jobs and become eligible for Medicaid services, and in part because the baby boomer generation is getting older and requires more medical care. In the campaign against speeding, from July 10th through 16th, the state police will step up enforcement of traffic laws against speeding in a campaign labeled "Obey the Sign or Pay the Fine." The director of the state police said that speeding generally reduces a driver's ability to steer safely around other vehicles and any dangerous obstacles in the road. It also lessens a driver's ability to negotiate an unexpected curve. Speeding translates to fatalities on Arkansas roadways, he said. Speeding is a factor in about a third of all fatalities caused by traffic accidents. County and city law enforcement officers will participate in the anti-speeding effort. Lottery scholarships. About 70,000 college students have applied for an academic challenge scholarship for the upcoming school year. The scholarships are funded with proceeds from the state lottery. Last year, 58,000 students applied and about 31,000 were awarded a lottery scholarship. The popularity of the new state lottery is believed to have increased awareness of the availability of the academic challenge scholarship. They will be worth $4,500 for freshmen at a four-year university and $2,225 for new students at two-year colleges. Thank you for listening to Spring River Chronicle Audio on the Go. Be sure to share these stories with your friends.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
Brody Renolette, Teen Racer by Sheila Roberts. Read by Jody Shackelford.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
Brody Alexander Renolette may only be 14 years old, but he has been racing most of his life. Whether it was go-karts or dirt bikes, and now a stock car at the West Plains Motor Speedway. Brody lives most of the year in Peoria, Illinois with his parents, but his summers are spent in the Hardy, Arkansas area with his grandfather, Glenn Smithy. While his go-kart and dirt bike racing honed his talents and coordination, Brody's weekend trips to the dirt race track with his grandfather created a desire in him to drive a dirt track race car. Glenn Smithy used to drag race in earlier years, so when his grandson mentioned he'd like to race cars, that is all it took for Glenn to be on board with the idea. Glenn went out and purchased a 1980 Monte Carlo, and at that time, Brody had never driven a stick shift, but it didn't take him long, only about 4 days to get the hang of it, and he was off to the races. Literally. In 2010, he ran in 3 races at the West Plains Motor Speedway, about 5 miles south of West Plains, 40 miles from Hardy on US 63, while this summer, he has already run 7 races so far. Brody races in the hobby stock class in a customized car with a 355 small block engine that powers the car for competition. There are not enough young men in his age group for him to race in the 12 to 16 group, so most of the time he is racing at the back of the lineup of more mature drivers. Brody is now 10th in points out of 25 racers and has already won several trophies. I asked Brody if his parents, Tim and Carrie, had watched him race. He said they came to watch his last race, the Friday, July 1st race, and he finished 9th out of 16 for that competition. I asked him what his mother had to say about him racing cars, and he said she almost had a heart attack. Brody is the oldest of 5 siblings. His sisters, Addison, Emma, and Miranda, hold him in high esteem, along with his younger brother, Brandon. Brody says if any of them follow suit, it'll probably be Brandon, who's now 10 years old. Glenn said that Brody's grandmother, Carol, of Hardy, Arkansas, and the whole family is supportive of Brody racing cars. Mr. Smith tells me that drivers win money according to their placement. He believes the sport is very safe. He tells me that back in the 50s and 60s, many people died in vehicles, but because of new technology, cars are built to be safer now on the roads and on the track. The heat races include 8 fast laps of each class of cars. Those determine the car's placement in the future race, which makes up 20 laps. While lastly, Brody finished 4th in the heat race, he will still line up at the back in the feature race because of his age. Then the hobby stock car event starts. Brody's at the back of the lineup, but before it is over, a car is spun out. Mr. Smithy explains if this happens twice to a driver, he can be pulled out of the race. More cars go out of the race, and Brody is running a smart race. Mr. Smithy says a month ago, the older drivers could have lapped him 5 or 6 times. He's improved so much in the last month, he hasn't been lapped lately. Mr. Smithy is very appreciative to the sponsors who support Brody in his endeavor, including local businesses Tim's Restaurant of Ash Flat, Carol's Clothing of Highland, and B&B Clocks of Hardy, as well as Summit Asset Management of Memphis, Tennessee. I think we should keep an eye on this little man with a whole lot of grit. He has aspirations of driving the NASCAR circuit, and you can see him just about any summer weekend out at the West Plains Motor Speedway. He, with his grandfather, will likely be somewhere around White Monte Carlo with the number 14 painted on the side, and with Mr. Smithy teaching him as they work together on his race car.
You're listening to Spring River Chronicle. Audio on the go.
Hey, Jody Shackelford here with your weekly weather report from Spring River Chronicle.
Sponsored by First National Banking Company.
Wednesday, July 13th, we're looking at variable clouds with some thunderstorms likely, 96 degrees with a low of 71. Now on Thursday, they're still calling for some sun, but there might be a thunderstorm or two that pops up. It's going to be humid, a high of 93 with a low of 72 degrees. On Friday, kicking off your weekend, July 15th, some sun, and they're calling again for thunderstorms maybe rolling through the area. 92 degrees for your high, dropping down to 73 in the evening for your low. And on Saturday, right in the middle of your weekend, a thunderstorm is possible. That's right, they're looking at thunderstorms coming through, but it is going to be hot. Saturday is the hottest day of the week at 98 degrees, dipping down to 74 in the evening. Now on Sunday, July 17th, again, for the 5th day in a row, thunderstorms possible. 93 degrees for your high, 74 for your low. And kicking off the next week, we're looking at Monday, our extended forecast. They're calling for partly sunny skies, no thunderstorms in the forecast, hot and humid, with a high of 91 and a low of 72. Don't forget to share this weather report with your friends, read the Spring River Chronicle, and check us out on myspringriver.com. Thanks a lot.
Downtown Hardy, Arkansas right now. And did you realize that there was an online contest? Yep, that's right, for the Department of Parks and Tourism. And Hardy, Arkansas came in at number 33 out of 175 places to visit in Arkansas. So right now, let's go down and talk to the mayor. What do you say? Who presented the award and how was the decision made?
All right, Joe David Rice, who is the Director of Arkansas Tourism Division, sent a letter to me, to the mayor, and told me that we had been selected for the top 175 of the places to visit in Arkansas in May of this year. And what happened was, as part of the state's celebration of its 175th anniversary, the Department of Parks and Tourism asked people to tell them what their favorite things were to do in Arkansas. So you went online and you nominated cities, etc., and their attributes, and I think there were 240 altogether that were nominated, and we were in the top 175. So he sent me a letter and let me know that we were. And on the state's birthday, they announced what places that the cities were in, And we were 33 out of the 175 because it was the 175th birthday. So
Well,
that's
that's
why they
great.
took the top one. It was online, and you went online, people did, and nominated. And they nominated us, the City of Hardy.
How did you and the citizens of Hardy feel about winning this award?
Ecstatic, we knew that all along how great our city was. That's why we live here. That's why we live here, work here, and enjoy ourselves. We play here. It's like paradise, and we're just excited that everybody else knows now what we knew all along. That city is a great place to live and work.
How will you use this award?
It's already on our website. We have discoverhardy.com, and I've already put it on our website that we are number 33 of 175. That, that's a big honor. That's in the top.
How will Hardy try to move up in the standings next year?
Well, it was a one-shot deal. In other words, it was for the anniversary this year. So it was a one-shot deal. So we are above that standing of 33 in our own minds. We are. So it was a special undertaking for this year because of the anniversary and the birthday of Arkansas. So we will put that on all our advertising, etc., which will, wouldn't that spark your interest if you were just looking through it and you'd never been to Hardy, we had it on our website. We were voted in 2011 number 33 out of the top 175 places to visit, and you had another place that you might want to visit in Arkansas. Well, you'd say, well, they must really have a lot to offer to be number 33 on the list. So, that will give us a big push toward our advertising and tourism. Being 33rd ranking in the entire state, that's priceless advertising. You can't buy your way to the top of this list. We earned it.
From the Spring River Chronicle newspaper, we want to say congratulations, Hardy, Arkansas, for your achievement and your award.